Sometimes a game can be great, but greatness doesn't always mean success. Some RPGs, even among the best ever made, sold far below expectations. They failed to spark sequels, or took years to get the recognition they deserved. Not because they were bad, but because the market overlooked them. Today, we'll look at 12 amazing RPGs that flopped in sales, but still deserve your time. Lost Odyssey was meant to be Microsoft's answer to Final Fantasy, but it never reached the sales it needed. Directed by Hironobu Sakaguchi, with art by Takehiko Inoue and music by Nobuo Uematsu, it had the dream team behind it. On the surface, it looked like the perfect JRPG, yet it sold under 1 million copies worldwide, falling far short of expectations. The story follows Kaim, an immortal cursed to live for 1,000 years, and it shines through the 1,000 years of dreams. Emotional short stories that explore his painful past. But beyond the narrative, Lost Odyssey delivered a refined turn-based combat system. It combined traditional Final Fantasy-style mechanics with innovations like the ring system, where timing boosted your attacks, and a skill-learning feature that let immortals absorb abilities from mortals. Boss battles were tough, requiring strategy and careful resource management, while the game's scale, 4 discs long, made it feel like a true epic. So why did it flop? Timing and platform. The Xbox 360 never took off in Japan, the main JRPG market, and Western players were already moving toward action-heavy titles. Despite strong reviews, Lost Odyssey didn't get the recognition or sales it deserved. Today, it remains one of the most emotional and complete JRPGs of its generation, still playable via backward compatibility on Xbox One and Series consoles. For anyone craving a classic story-driven experience, Lost Odyssey proves that sometimes great games fail, but are still worth discovering. When Blue Dragon first arrived on the Xbox 360 in 2006, it felt like a love letter to classic JRPGs of the 90s. Instead of chasing realism or edgy themes, it embraced bright colors, lighthearted humor, and an epic journey that spanned 3 discs, something rare in that era. For many players, it was a refreshing throwback to the golden age of role-playing. The adventure followed Shu and his friends, each able to summon powerful shadow dragons that gave them unique abilities. The combat was traditional turn-based, but with a clever job system that encouraged experimentation, letting players swap classes and build versatile strategies. Boss fights demanded planning, but the pacing kept battles fun rather than frustrating. It captured the charm and accessibility of old-school RPGs while still feeling big and ambitious. So why did it fail to reach its potential? The biggest issue was platform. The Xbox 360 had little traction in Japan, the market most likely to embrace a JRPG like this. While it sold fairly well at launch, it never reached the global sales milestone Microsoft expected, and outside Japan, interest was modest. Even with good reviews and an anime adaptation, the franchise quickly lost momentum. It deserved more love, but instead became one of the most overlooked exclusives of the Xbox 360. Radiant Historia, released on the Nintendo DS in 2010, is one of the finest RPGs most players never touched. Developed by Atlus, it delivered a brilliant mix of time travel storytelling and tactical combat. Critics praised it as one of the best RPGs on the handheld, but sales were modest, and it never gained the recognition it deserved. The game followed Stock, a soldier who discovers the White Chronicle, a book that lets him travel between 2 parallel timelines. Players constantly jumped back and forth in history, fixing mistakes and unlocking new paths. Unlike many RPGs, failure wasn't the end. It was a clue. Each bad outcome added information to the story, encouraging experimentation and smart planning. Combat also stood out. Instead of standard turn-based battles, Radiant Historia used a grid system where enemies could be pushed, pulled, and repositioned. By manipulating the battlefield, players could stack enemies together for massive combos, making strategy as important as raw strength. It felt refreshing compared to other handheld RPGs of the time. So why did it flop? Released late in the DS's life, it was overshadowed by bigger franchises like Pokemon and Dragon Quest. Marketing was minimal, and outside of hardcore RPG circles, few even knew it existed. Even its later 3DS remake, Perfect Chronology, struggled to find a wider audience. Today, Radiant Historia is remembered as one of the DS's greatest hidden gems. A brilliant RPG with unique mechanics that deserved far more success than it ever achieved. Vagrant's story is often hailed as one of the greatest RPGs on the original PlayStation, yet it was far from a sales success. Released in 2000 by Square, it carried a massive budget and even received a perfect score from the Japanese magazine Famitsu. Critics adored it, but commercially it fell short, selling far less than other Square titles of the era like Final Fantasy or Chrono Cross. Part of the problem was timing. It launched late in the PS1's life when attention was already shifting to the PS2. The game itself was bold and experimental. Unlike traditional JRPGs, Vagrant's story focused on a single character, Ashley Riot, a risk-breaker investigating political conspiracies and supernatural forces in the cursed city of Liamond. Combat blended real-time movement with a battle ring system, where precise timing of button presses created combos. It also featured one of the most complex weapon crafting systems ever seen, requiring players to manage affinities, stats, and materials across dozens of weapon types. For many, the depth was overwhelming, making the game intimidating to finish. Yet the ambition was undeniable. With a mature narrative, cinematic presentations, and dark atmosphere, Vagrant's story pushed the boundaries of what an RPG could be. Unfortunately, its experimental mechanics and tough difficulty alienated casual players, while its late release hurt its sales momentum. Today, it's remembered as a cult classic, a masterpiece of design that deserved far more recognition. But at launch, it was one of Square's most expensive risks, and financially, it simply didn't pay off. Lightning Returns was the final chapter in the 13 trilogy, released in 2013. It promised to bring closure to Lightning's story, but while the concept was ambitious, the game underperformed compared to the first two entries. Critics were divided, and sales were far below Square Enix's expectations. Gameplay was its biggest gamble. Instead of the traditional party-based combat of Final Fantasy, Lightning Returns focused entirely on a single character. Battles used a real-time system where Lightning swapped between customizable outfits called schemata. Each outfit had its own abilities, strengths, and weaknesses, allowing for creative strategies. The combat was fast, flashy, and surprisingly deep, but also very different from what fans expected. On top of that, the entire game was built around a time limit system. Players had only a set number of in-game days to complete objectives before the world ended. While innovative, many found this stressful rather than engaging. Narratively, the game had strong moments, giving Lightning closure and tying up plot threads, but the heavy reliance on side quests and the unusual structure left many players cold. For a franchise built on sprawling worlds and party-driven adventures, this shift felt alienating. In the end, Lightning Returns was not a bad game. It had bold mechanics and some brilliant design ideas, but its experimental nature, combined with franchise fatigue after two previous 13 games, doomed it commercially. Today, it's remembered as an overlooked but fascinating experiment in the Final Fantasy series. The World Ends With You was one of the most surprising sequels of the last decade. The original on the Nintendo DS became a cult hit thanks to its unique dual-screen combat, stylish art, and urban setting. Few expected Square Enix to bring it back, but in 2021 the sequel arrived on PS4, Switch, and later PC. Fans praised it, yet sales told another story. The sequel captured the same vibe, mixing anime visuals with an energetic soundtrack. Combat shifted to a real-time system where each party member was tied to a button, and equipping pins unlocked new abilities. The result was a chaotic but creative battle system that rewarded experimentation. The world of Shibuya was stylish, filled with eccentric characters, side quests, and a story that balanced supernatural mystery with youth culture. In many ways, it succeeded in modernizing the series while keeping its spirit intact. So why did it flop? In Japan, it sold only around 28,000 copies in its first week across PlayStation 4 and Switch combined. Marketing was minimal, and the long gap since the original meant that many younger players had no attachment to the franchise. Despite critical praise, it simply didn't find its audience. Today, Neo stands as an excellent JRPG with style and heart. A sequel that deserved far more recognition. It's a reminder that even great games can fail if timing and promotion work against them. Digital Devil Saga was Atlus's attempt to push the Shin Megami Tensei universe into something bigger and more cinematic. Released in two connected parts on the PS2, it told the story of warriors in the junkyard who could transform into demons by devouring enemies. The concept was darker than most JRPGs, and while critics praised it, sales never reached the ambitious expectations Atlus had set. The gameplay built on the press turn system from Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne, rewarding players for exploiting weaknesses while punishing mistakes instantly. What made it unique was the devour mechanic. Characters could literally consume enemies to learn skills, adding long-term strategy to every battle. Bosses were punishing, dungeons relentless, and resource management was essential. It was tough, stylish, and deeply rewarding for those willing to master it. Visually, it stood out with bleak settings, detailed designs, and a heavy industrial soundtrack. Atlus invested more than usual, with voice acting, polish, and a larger scope than their earlier projects. But the high budget meant it needed stronger sales, and that didn't happen. Niche appeal and the series' darker tone kept it from reaching a wider audience. Today, Digital Devil Saga is remembered as a cult classic. Overshadowed by Persona's rise, it didn't bring Atlus the profit they wanted, but it remains one of the boldest and most distinctive RPG duologies ever released on the PS2. Alpha Protocol was Obsidian's take on a spy RPG, released in 2010. Instead of dragons or space marines, it put players in the role of Michael Thornton, a secret agent whose missions spanned the globe. The hook was choice. Every decision shaped alliances, changed missions, and could alter the entire ending. On paper, it was a dream concept, a modern-day RPG with branching paths and real consequences. The gameplay mixed third-person shooting with role-playing depth. Players could invest in stealth, hacking, martial arts, or heavy weapons, and each mission allowed multiple solutions. The timed dialogue system forced quick responses, making conversations feel tense and dynamic. This gave Alpha Protocol a replay value few RPGs could match, but the execution was rough. Combat often felt clumsy, enemy AI was unreliable, and technical bugs broke immersion. Critics praised the branching story, but hammered the poor polish, and many players quit before discovering its strengths. Add weak marketing and competition from bigger titles, and sales fell flat. Today, Alpha Protocol is remembered as a cult classic. It didn't sell enough to continue, but fans still praise its ambition, its reactive storytelling, and its unique place in the genre. It failed commercially, yet proved that RPGs could work in a modern spy thriller setting. Valkyria Chronicles was Sega's bold attempt to innovate the strategy RPG genre. Released on the PS3 in 2008, it combined tactical gameplay with a hand-drawn watercolor art style. Set in a fictional version of World War II, the story followed Welkin Gunther and Squad 7 as they defended their homeland from invasion. Critics praised its originality, but sales were far below what Sega expected. The gameplay introduced the Blitz system, a mix of turn-based tactics and third-person action. Players issued commands on a map, then zoomed in to control individual soldiers directly, aiming shots in real time. Each unit had unique traits, and missions demanded careful planning, positioning, and efficient use of limited resources. It was tense, rewarding, and unlike anything else on the console. Visually, the Canvas engine made every battle look like a moving painting, with a powerful soundtrack supporting both dramatic combat and character-driven scenes. But despite strong reviews, the game struggled commercially. In Japan, the PS3 had a weak install base compared to handhelds, leading Sega to shift its sequels to the PSP. That decision left many Western fans unable to continue the story, and the franchise lost momentum. Today, Valkyria Chronicles is remembered as a cult classic, revived years later with remasters and a fourth entry. But the original's poor sales remain a reminder that innovation doesn't always equal commercial success. Deadfire was Obsidian's follow-up to their 2015 hit, aiming to expand the classic CRPG formula. Released in 2018 for PC, it took players to a vast archipelago where you could sail your own ship, recruit companions, and shape the fate of nations. Critics praised its scope and writing, but sales fell short of expectations, turning what should have been a flagship RPG into a commercial disappointment. The game kept the isometric, real-time with pause combat of the first entry, but with more flexibility. Characters could multi-class, customize abilities, and handle encounters with countless strategies. Exploration was its strongest feature. Islands to discover, factions to negotiate with, and a ship to upgrade as your mobile base. Every choice carried weight, affecting companions, politics, and even divine forces. For fans of Baldur's Gate-style RPGs, it felt like a modern evolution of the genre. So why did it flop? timing played a big role. Released close to original Sin 2, Deadfire was overshadowed by its competitor. Its slower pacing and text-heavy style also limited its mainstream appeal, keeping it locked in a niche. Even though backers supported it strongly at launch, broader sales didn't follow. Today, Deadfire is seen as a gem for dedicated RPG fans. It may not have reached commercial success, but for those who value freedom of choice and detailed storytelling, it remains one of Obsidian's finest works. Shin Megami Tensei 3, released on the PlayStation 2 in 2003, was Atlus's bold revival of its mainline series after nearly a decade without a new entry. Dark, punishing, and unapologetically hardcore, it became a cult favorite among RPG fans. Yet despite critical acclaim, it sold far less than Atlus hoped, keeping it in the shadows compared to more accessible titles. The game's setup is brutal. Tokyo is destroyed in an apocalyptic event known as the Conception, and you play as the Demi-Fiend, a half-demon navigating the ruined city. Combat used the press turn system, rewarding precise use of enemy weaknesses while punishing mistakes instantly. Recruiting demons was central. You had to negotiate, fuse, and evolve allies to survive. Boss fights like the infamous Matador became nightmares for unprepared players, and the difficulty alone caused many to give up early. The atmosphere was equally striking. Surreal environments, haunting music, and a bleak tone unlike other JRPGs of its time. But the combination of high difficulty, heavy themes, and niche appeal kept it from mainstream success. Compared to the rising popularity of series like Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts, Nocturne felt too intimidating for casual audiences. Today, Nocturne is remembered as one of the most influential JRPGs on PS2. It laid the foundation for mechanics later used in Persona and other Atlus titles. Commercially, it underperformed, but its legacy as a cult classic is undeniable. Suikoden 5, released in 2006 for the PlayStation 2, was Konami's attempt to bring the beloved RPG series back to its roots after the mixed reception of Suikoden 4. Set in the Queendom of Falena, it told a political story full of betrayal, shifting alliances, and royal intrigue. Fans and critics agreed it was the best entry since Suikoden 2, yet sales were underwhelming, and the franchise faded soon after. Gameplay returned to the 6-character party system that made the series famous, with fast-paced turn-based battles and the inclusion of powerful rune magic. The game also featured large-scale tactical wars, naval battles, and one-on-one duels, keeping variety high. Recruiting all 108 Stars of Destiny was still the ultimate challenge, requiring exploration, side quests, and paying close attention to hidden characters. For longtime fans, it felt like a true revival of the series. So why did it flop? Timing played a big role. Released late in the PS2's life, it was overshadowed by next-gen hype and bigger RPG franchises. Marketing was weak, especially outside Japan, and many casual players skipped it entirely. Even with strong reviews, it never reached the sales numbers Konami needed to justify continuing the series. Today, Suikoden 5 is remembered as a hidden gem of the PS2 era. With its political drama, memorable cast, and classic Suikoden feel, it's considered by many to be one of the most underrated RPGs of its generation. Some RPGs are legendary, but they never got the sales they deserved. In this video, we dive into 12 incredible RPGs that flopped commercially, hidden gems that were overlooked, underappreciated, or simply released at the wrong time. From cult classics on PS2 and Xbox 360 to forgotten handheld masterpieces, these games prove that success isn't always measured in copies sold. If you're a true RPG fan, you'll want to check out every single one of them.